Hello and welcome to the Feck It Fun, Fabulous and Free Eating Disorder Recovery podcast. I'm Helly and I'm here to provide regular bursts of information and inspiration, some neuroscience applicable to eating disorder recovery, perhaps a few rants, but otherwise lots of positivity with a bit of a feck it attitude, some fun and a sprinkling of fabulousness to help everyone find freedom in recovery. Hello my possums and fabulous listeners. Welcome to this episode of the Feck It Fun, Fabulous and Free Eating Disorder Recovery podcast. I'm Helly and today's episode is about making the weight gain that is probably inevitable when you're overcoming an eating disorder, making it justified. So let me explain. I think for a lot of people, a very much feared scenario that a lot of you out there worry about in your journey to overcome a restrictive eating disorder is not just gaining weight. Yes, everybody has a discomfort at the thought of gaining weight, but it's the thought of gaining that weight while you're still restricting or while you're still continuing to engage in compensatory behaviours. Because if you're trying to overcome an eating disorder and you're working really hard to break the restriction, break all those behaviours, and you're still not quite there with fully overcoming all those behaviours and those restrictive habits, but you're gaining weight anyway, it can feel really, really unjustified, and it can make the thoughts about not going any further even stronger and even harder to overcome. So a lot of people start the process to overcome a restrictive eating disorder by eating a bit more, and then as they do so, they find that their hunger also starts to increase. So then perhaps they add in a bit more food into their intake, but the amounts that their brain and body begin to scream out for can then become really quite overwhelming. And I did an episode, I think 1 or 2 episodes ago, about the concept of extreme hunger and how deep the hunger can become and how high it can drive the intake if you really do follow it. So people in eating disorder recovery develop this powerful and often very frightening urge to eat huge amounts of food. But then that's coupled with an even stronger pull to continue to restrict and just hold on to some level of energy deficit. And simultaneously, while that's happening, people often also begin to reduce the amount of exercise or movement they're engaging in, which in itself feels very alien and wrong to them because the movement and the exercise is so addictive and so compulsive. And yet when they do slow down, the internal pull to stop and to rest completely can become stronger than it ever has been, but still so incredibly hard to give into and accept and just stop and rest in the way that deep down they really want to. So it's at this point where food intake has increased, but still not to the level the body and brain are screaming for, and when the movement compulsions and exercise compulsions are reduced, but again, the ability to give in completely and really rest has not yet been found. It's at this point that weight gain can first be noted, and that can be really quite emotionally unsettling. Because it's here that you feel that you've only really got half a foot into the process that you know needs to happen for yourself to fully mentally and not just physically overcome the eating disorder. And yet then you find that your body is gaining weight. It's just unjustified, it's frustrating, it's quite distressing in a lot of ways as well. And at this point, people very often experience thoughts that you now can't justify eating even more and can't justify eating enough to meet that higher hunger. And you'll also very likely feel that you can't rest more, even though that's all you really want to do. And suddenly your head becomes filled with future tripping thoughts about what might happen to your weight and your body if you did eat even more or rest fully now when you're already gaining weight on what you have been doing. All those fears that you're going to spiral into a never-ending, morbidly obese future play out more vividly before your eyes and become even more credible to your anxious and eating disordered mind just from this little initial bit of weight gain. And of course, rationally, you can know why your body is starting to gain weight on just a small amount of increased intake. It all goes back, of course, to your body's metabolism, and when you're still in a semi-starved state and your body is still within that restrictive eating disordered state, your body's metabolism is markedly lower than it should be for it to function at the optimal level that it needs to function at. And at the end of the day, this is a life and energy saving mechanism that your body uses to survive on the limited energy levels that you've been giving it for so long. So when some extra energy does come in, as you tentatively begin to eat a bit more, the body initially holds on to that extra energy rather than using it straight away on non-essential functions, just in case this is just a short-lived additional burst of energy that it's going to need for essential function in the future. So the body will store these small amounts of extra energy coming in, and it will stay in starvation mode at the beginning. And this, of course, is when you do see that initial weight gain. And it's only when the energy intake remains consistently higher than the energy being expended each day, and when there are already a few emergency reserves in the tank, so to speak, or when your body has stored a few emergency reserves, that some of those non-vital bodily functions will begin to switch back on. And that's when your metabolism will start to rev up slightly. And when that happens, it's going to take increasing amounts of food to continue to gain weight. But of course, none of this knowledge will stop your brain from using the fact that you're already gaining weight on an intake that's lower than you really want to be eating to persuade you that you should not even munch on one extra tiny cookie in a day, let alone anything more than that. So what then can you do about all of this? For any of you who are listening who are not in this situation at the moment, perhaps you are still at the stage of contemplating starting the process to overcome a restrictive eating disorder, you are in the fortunate position of being able to prevent this scenario from becoming your reality. And the best way you do this is to dive into huge eats and a lot of rest, stopping all other forms of purging or compensatory behaviours from day one. And if you do that, when you do gain weight, no matter the rate at which you gain, it will feel justified because you're actually giving your body all that it's asking for and therefore all that it needs. And in turn, your body will respond by using the extra fuel and rest that you give it to ensure that you fully restore and heal. And this will enable your body to escape the energy deficit state you're currently in. And as this happens, your metabolism and your body's vital functions will begin to switch on and up again. But for those of you who are in the unhappy situation of having gained weight in the way described, perhaps even to a level that you feel is already at your set weight point or above, yet you're also still eating restrictively in terms of food amounts or types or with a lot of rules, then things do still need to change. If you're fully aware that you have gained weight, but you are still engaging in compulsive movement, exercise, or other behaviours that you feel powerless to stop and which are making your life miserable, it's still time to address that. Or if you're still engaging in purging behaviours or other means of compensating for your intake, then these still have to be addressed as well. So what then do you do now? The answer to this is not to lose weight again so that you can do recovery right next time. I know a lot of eating disorder brains will be jumping to that conclusion, but please, just don't go there. Don't go there, please. Instead, focus on pushing ahead from where you are right now. You're going to need to find every ounce of courage But do this and you will be bulletproof when you do fully overcome this eating disorder. And for some people, gaining weight initially in this disordered, still restricting or compensating, but less so than it was way, though not ideal, is perhaps the only way to get to the point of them being able to fully let go. In some cases, initial weight gain and a slight reduction in restriction and compensatory behaviours seems to be necessary for the person to be able to comprehend what's needed to take that deeper dive into the unrestrictive eating waters. Or perhaps they're not yet fully in a space of being frustrated enough by the illness to do all it takes to overcome it until later, when they've experienced an initial greater taste of freedom and it sparks that desire for more. So if you have gained some weight, or even a lot of weight in a disordered way, it's okay, and you can still fix this and fully overcome the eating disorder without needing to go backwards again. The reality, though, is that you might have to accept more weight gain to get to the end point of the process. Or your body might not gain much more. That's not something either one of us can know until it happens, and attempting to control it will never allow the mental rewiring work that's so very necessary for this process. So what do you do then from here? You do the same as the person who is at the start of their journey. From right now, you begin to eat everything that your brain and body are asking you for, no matter how much that is, what it is, or how crazy it might look to an onlooker. You cannot allow what others think or what your eating disordered self thinks to hold you back. This is your life and your future health at stake. So begin to eat all that your brain and body crave. Rest fully, stop all the other compensatory behaviours, break all those little rules that are still there. Allow your body to trust you to feed it and take it well and truly out of the energy deficit state you've kept it in for far too long. Let your body feel safe enough to switch up all those internal functions that it's still keeping suppressed because it didn't have enough energy reliably coming in for so long. And importantly too, allow your brain to unwire all those old eating disordered networks and wire in new networks that automatically guide you in future to follow behaviours that are unrestricted and free of the eating disorder's influence. At the end of the day, no one gains weight forevermore. Everyone who goes through this and trusts the process, sticking with it even when it gets tough, will eventually develop hunger cues, energy levels, and a functioning brain that are suited to a free, happy, independent, and non-eating disordered life and future. But to get there though, act like a person who wants to and is determined to gain weight, so that when any weight gain does happen, it feels justified. Not only that, it's the best way to heal your body and to most comprehensively rewire your brain as well. So wherever you are right now, whatever starting point you're at, whether you've already gained some weight or whether you're at the beginning of this process, just jump into the rest of the process right now, into the process of accepting more weight gain, eating like a person who doesn't care about that, and just listen to what your body's asking for. Break all those restrictive behaviours, all those ongoing restrictive habits, all those ongoing compensatory behaviours. Put a stop to all of it. Be brave and do it, because you can. And when you do, I think you'll be surprised at just how well you accept and cope with whatever happens as a result. I'm Helly. If you want to know more about me, then you'll find me on hellybarnes.com, and otherwise I'll speak to you in the next episode. Thank you for listening to the Feck-It Fun, Fabulous and Free Eating Disorder Recovery podcast. Don't forget, eating disorder recovery doesn't have to be boring and doesn't have to be serious. Now go and grab yourself some food and have a fabulous rest of the day.